Okay, so we are resuming our council meeting for Tuesday, December 1st, after coming out of closed session. And as per our session, staff was given direction to proceed on a matter, property matter. I think that's all that's needed, right, Tina and Ron? Yeah. So it is December 1st, and so that means the holiday season is upon us. As we prepare to celebrate holidays and traditions that are important to our families, I want to encourage you to support local wherever possible. Our retailers, service providers, and restaurants have become creative and have done all they can to stay afloat during the last 8 months. Did you know that for every $100 you spend at a local business, $68 remains local? It is incredibly simple to keep it local. You can buy your turkey at Foodland. You can buy the widget at Home Hardware. You can buy the chair from Lucan Architectural or a decor item from Emily Michelle. And you can buy a gift certificate from one of our very many estheticians or hairstylists. And of course, you finish it off with a gift certificate from one of our restaurants. It's pretty easy. It's very friendly. And the payback to Lucan Biddulph will be huge. So keep it local. Lisa has worked with a number of our retailers to organize a Shop Local Festive Saturday event. And that's happening this Saturday. So it's the perfect day to knock off some items on your Christmas list to support and shop local. And I know that I will probably see all of you out being Santa and stroking those names off those lists as you are visiting all of our retailers across Lucan Biddulph. We do have tonight 2 delegations, and I'm very pleased to welcome Mary Velez from the AuSable Bayfield Conservation Authority right now. And she is going to be presenting to us a presentation on monitoring for healthy watersheds. Mary, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. It's very nice to be here. First of all, a few things. Can everybody hear me okay?
Great.
Okay, great. Do I get to share my screen, the presentation?
Yep, I think Ron can do that.
Yep, it's good. I'm sharing. I'll share it now.
Good.
Okay. Everybody can see my slides okay? Okay, well, great. Thanks so much for having me. I just want to take a few minutes of your time to provide you a little bit of an update about some of the work we do for healthy watersheds at the AuSable Bayfield. These reports that I'm going to present are just a few of the ones that we had to do for deliverables for March 2020. The Healthy Watersheds program at AuSable Bayfield, we try to work very closely with federal and provincial level agencies to get some additional funding for some of the works that we're doing. And with those funds come reporting deliverables. And last year in March, we were very busy writing up 12, 13 different reports. And I presented those to the board. We were all working from home and it was a bit challenging, as you can recall, those early days. But we presented them to the board, and the board suggested that we share these reports more broadly. So I'll just be talking a little bit about that. Before I get into that, I just want to explain a little bit about the Healthy Watersheds program at AuSable Bayfield. It was started in 2000, and it was felt that the board at the time felt that it would be a great service for our constituents in our watershed area to address environmental issues, but with working with community groups and combining that position with one that would be one helping with the monitoring. So this little diagram here is if we have some actions we undertake, we monitor, we get education and outreach out, and we're really trying to protect our water, soil, and our living things in our watershed. So this is our overall watershed area with the Lucan Biddulph municipality over riding it there. Basically, we have the Bayfield River and the Ausable River starting up at Staffa going out at Port Franks. And then we have a number of shoreline tributaries. And so the Lukenbadolf municipality is mostly in the Little Ausable River. In fact, for most of our watersheds, our sub-watershed areas, I would say that Lukenbadolf actually is the one that is probably the most contained within a watershed area of most of our watersheds. Most of them have a lot of overlapping municipal boundaries. In this particular case, it's mostly the Little Ausable. But also you do have a little bit of water moving into the Thames River as well. So just a little bit about the reports now. And actually, before I get into that, I just want to explain that the only way that we can work to do these reports is if we have community interest. And we have a lot of communities that we are supporting in different ways. So, of course, we have the lakeshore community that are concerned about conditions in the lake. We also have some groups around Grand Bend that are concerned about some specific watershed areas, like the Old Ausable Channel that runs through the Pinery. We've worked very carefully with the Nairn Creek area with some of the fish that are in that area, and we've supported some of the work there. And we've also worked, we have a very large best management practice. We're monitoring the different kinds of tiling up near Clinton. So the reports reflect these community interests. So you'll see some that are about fish, some that are about mussels, some about habitat, some about shorelines, some about wetlands. So it's a real mix of different things that we're looking at. Tonight, I'm going to focus a little bit on the Ausable River and some of the rare species that are there, and talk a little bit about wetlands. But surely, if you're interested in other projects, you would be able to check them out on the website. The other point I'll make about this slide is that these projects, like I say, every dollar that we get from the municipal levy for the healthy watersheds, we're able to leverage it 3 times for some of the reports, and sometimes as much as 10 times when we take some of those dollars and put them out into the community to support private land stewardship. So the first topic that I'll just touch on here tonight are freshwater mussels in the Ausable River. These mussels are also found in the Thames and the Sydenham River, and they're really very interesting. They have a very interesting life history characteristics. They're essentially a clam, but part of their body is a foot, and this particular fleshy protrusion, if you will, in some of these mussels can mimic other small fish. So it can, when it's mimicking small fish, bigger fish come over to check it out, to eat it. And that's when the mussel releases their larva onto the fish's gills. And this is a benefit to these fish, or to these mussels, because if they just release their larva kind of in the creek, they would all just wash downstream and we wouldn't have freshwater mussels in rivers. So this is an adaptation that these mussels have made to attract fish, latch onto their gills with their larvae, and then the fish distribute the larvae all around. And these mussels are pretty much one of the most imperiled species on the planet in North America and in our rivers here. And it's just because of freshwater issues that happen, due to intensive land uses in the watersheds. We have some numbers of freshwater mussels that are not as sturdy as they could be. This particular graph shows 2 mussel types. One is a 3-ridge, a very common mussel, and one is a more endangered species. And I'll just point out that the graphs show the population distribution of different sizes over a 3-year study period, over 3 years, 2006, 2011, and 2018, 2019. And this is in the Ausable River. And you can see this common mussel, the 3-ridge, has a pretty normal distribution, where the snuff box, one of these rare mussels, that population is really faltering. And we think partly it might be related to some of the flow conditions or some of the increased sediment and nutrients in the watershed. Another aquatic animal that people would be more familiar with would be the fish. And we do sample fish, but typically with working with the different partners, we sort of follow different methods, and it's very hard for us to pull together data over the longer term like we did for the freshwater mussels. So this year we're really making an effort to be more consistent for our own needs, to be able to tell what's happening with our fish communities over time. I'm going to switch now to another topic that's important to our landscapes. We probably have heard about wetlands across our landscapes, and are recognizing that there's really quite a low amount of wetlands across our area in a landscape that would have traditionally had 20% of the watersheds, or 20% of the land being covered with wetlands. We're down to less than 2%. And we find trying to protect and enhance them to be certainly an effort in our developed landscapes. And I guess some of the things to consider when we look at some of the policy approaches that we've taken is that in some cases we've had inconsistent definitions of what is a wetland that seems to have an impact on us being able to use policy tools. We seem to have hard to be able to show them on some mapping. So we're not, because they're so variable, it's hard to keep track of where they're at. So sometimes we lose them when we didn't even know that we had them. And so sometimes because they're so small and they're so expensive to monitor and maintain, to watch out for, we just lose them and we don't even notice that they're being lost. So one approach that we looked at, or a suite of approaches we looked at, we thought that really trying to grow the pluses might be a way forward with some of these really unique areas. I just want to highlight this picture. This is a picture of a very small portion of a person's field that was always wet, and they converted it to a wetland. It's just a tiny corner of their property, and they're getting quite a lot of joy out of that wetland. So as far as then moving forward with a bit more on the outreach and communication side about these wetlands, we've noticed that in the past when we've worked with landowners and we do a project, this fellow here he really did a big project. 38 hectares were retired and put into wetlands, but that's not going to be an approach that everyone is going to use. But we did find that when that landowner did some of that kind of work, there were efforts made all around him to either protect or enhance other parts of the people's properties. So we're hoping that with some of the funding that we're going to be working with over the next little while, we'll be able to work with landowners to find out what their needs are with respect to maintaining these important features on the landscape. So I'm just going to wrap up here. I just want to mention how monitoring helps to enhance our local environment. And what we've been finding over the past 20 years is really a big change in the public's perception about the environment. And we really noticed that at the beginning of the year, this year, with people really seeking nature whenever all the parks were closed. We really saw a big outpouring of interest in connecting to nature. And we've certainly seen with the community events that we were hosting prior to 2020 that there's a lot more people attending them. We're beginning to understand better the effectiveness of the different agricultural and urban best management practices. So we know that those things are effective and can be employed. We know that by doing some of the long-term monitoring, we'll be able to tell if we're making a difference on some of these smaller areas where we do some of the BMPs. And it will also help to tell us where we need to do more projects and for more protection and improvements. Of course, we always have to keep in mind that people's ideas are always changing, and we have to work with the community to make sure that we're addressing their needs as we go forward. Just one final thing is every 5 years, all of the conservation authorities in Ontario put out watershed report cards, which gives people an opportunity to have a look at their own backyard creek to see how the forest and water conditions are for their own smaller areas. So thanks again for having me this evening so that I could provide a little bit of information about the Healthy Watersheds program at the Asabo Bayfield. And I'll take any questions if anyone has any.
Great. Thanks very much for that, Mary. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Regan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That was very good. Thank you very much for that report. I'm just wondering what we can do maybe to get people more involved, sparking more community interest. I'm just wondering, do you go into the schools and start talking to younger people? I know that, people are, with the situation that's going on, there's more and more people, I think, maybe looking for things to do, but I'm also wondering about the education part of it. So do we go into schools? Do we have programs that young people can get involved in? Because I think that's where we need to start.
Yeah, it's a great question. And we are very involved with different schools. Wilberforce School, we have a very good working relationship with that school. And we've helped with, I wouldn't be able to speak exactly to the different programs that are, I know there's a species at risk program. And I think there was some building of, I think the tree that I showed in the slides that I showed was actually at Wilberforce that was planting. So some community plantings at the schools. So the education department is quite involved with our local schools. Now this year is a little different. Some schools are really cottoning on to the idea of the outdoor ed, and it's really, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing kind of an idea when it comes to outdoor education. So so we are still trying to pursue that angle, but we're also offering new programs for people that maybe didn't put their kids back to school or have really young kids. And so there's quite a variety of different options on our website.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Westman.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you? Oh, hi, Alex. Hi.
Yeah. So anyhow, I wanted to say I got a tremendous amount out of the turtle release last year. I mean, obviously this year, a little different climate for that kind of work, but I got a lot out of that because it wasn't just the turtle release. There was, you guys were doing seminars on the fish and the freshwater mussels, and like I walked away from that literally just blown away by the amount of information that we got out of that. So obviously with COVID, it was difficult to do any programs like that this year, but I was hoping that we'll continue with that once the COVID thing is kind of under control. Now, you're going to be doing it's my understanding that the authority is going to be doing some more outdoor education programs in the near future, like as we get into a better climate for after the pandemic. So do you have anything to say about that? I guess, I don't know.
Well, thanks very much for your question, Alex. I think you're telling everybody that some of the events that you've attended in the past really helped to highlight some new things to you and that people could take part in them. And then going forward, right now during this time where we're not to get together as much, there are some education programs being offered at the Asabo Bayfield that are with smaller group oriented. And we're really trying, I know the education department is really trying to try different angles on education right now. We'll look forward to those days again when we can host bigger crowds because we have such lovely conservation areas to do that.
Any other questions or comments on Mary's presentation? Well, thanks very much for joining us, Mary. That was great. And we will certainly look forward to further updates from ABCA.
Great. Take care.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Okay. Our next delegation is from Blue Water. And joining us is the president of Blue Water, Francis Bellew, and he's unmuted, but maybe once he gets back up, we'll introduce him and then he can update us on some of the changes that he's seeing coming from Blue Water and how that will affect us.
Hello.
Hi, Francis. Welcome.
Yeah, well, that's my pleasure. It's
Great.
a different way of doing this, but certainly glad that we can.
Yeah. Well, the one thing is, at least we have options, right? At least we have options. So,
Certainly.
anyway, so I'll turn it over to you, and we look forward to hearing what you have to tell us.
Okay. So essentially, I was asked to bring you up to date on the 3R regs that are up with the ministry. I'll tell you what I know, and I'm certainly open to any questions, and I'll try to do my best to give you the answers that I can give you at this time.
Great.
So the 3R regs is new regulations that the Ministry of the Environment posted on October 19th of this year. It's not something new. It's something that's been coming ever since the government passed the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act in 2016, and we were even talking about it before that. So this has been a long time coming, and I can honestly tell you that for the last 2 years, I've been part of a larger group in Toronto that we meet pretty much monthly to work on this particular regulation and how what was coming to municipalities. So we've been very close to the whole situation and its development for the last 2 years, meeting on a monthly basis and sometimes more often. So it's finally out, and generally speaking, and it's out for comments right now until December 3rd, and at which point the minister will take the comments into consideration, and then we hope that sometime in the first quarter of 2021 they'll adopt the regulation and move on. So what does this mean? Well, essentially the act itself promises a new blue box system in Ontario that's is more standard across the province. So they're looking at province-wide collection system. Not, we cover most of the municipalities now in Ontario, but not quite everyone. So they're trying to cover everybody. Certainly everybody south of in the southern part of Ontario. Standardized enhanced list of materials that they're trying to promote. They're trying to bring in higher targets for recovery of materials. And then the Act also gives us a bit of certainty as far as how the system will change from what we have today to the new world, essentially, as we call it, which is managed by the producers. And then, the key of this whole thing essentially is to pass on the current Blue Box program to the producers that make the packaging and make them both fiscally and operationally responsible for it, so that municipalities would no longer have to carry the financial burden to offer the Blue Box service locally. So that's really what the regulation is about. How it is planned right now essentially is if it was to go into effect at the beginning of 2021, there will not be any real changes until the transition period starts, which is in 2023. So, and even in your case right now, our planned transition date is actually for sometime in 2024. We did request a date of April 1st, 2024. The current regulations don't specify a month. The ministry tells us that in the final regs, it'll say a quarter. So maybe the first quarter of 2024, third quarter, whatever it may be. And right now we're on the list for being for transitioning in 2024. So essentially, for your council right now, it's status quo. There's no changes. It's a service as usual with us until your term is over in 2022. The next council that gets elected, what they're going to see is this transition is going to happen sometime in 2024, where the producers are technically taking over the existing system, so what we offer today. And so that means that the same type of collection at the same frequency with the same materials that you have today would be taken over by the producers. So again, really from the household perspective, there really should be no real changes there. What we don't know at this point is who's going to provide the service. The association itself has been providing the service in the area for the last 30 plus years. We want to continue to provide the service to all our members. We want to continue to be a part of the system. We think we can provide good service for both the municipalities and the producers and provide the most efficient system possible. We want to maintain the one truck going down the road collecting both materials. We don't want to have 2 or 3 trucks going down the road and making it difficult for you, or for that matter, to have waste collected on one day and recycling on a different day, and with different contractors and different phone numbers if you have issues and stuff like that. And truly, if it was done like that, you wouldn't really save any money. At the end of the day, it's going to cost you the same as what you're doing now, perhaps more. So we want to try to avoid that, and I think we can play an important role there to satisfy everyone's objectives and make it good. But the way the regulation is written right now, if it comes into effect, in April of 2021, we have to report to REPRA, which is the new WDO, if some of you have been around for a while. We have to tell them essentially, who do we service, or specifically like which household do we service, what frequency, what kind of materials are we collecting from them, what sort of container do we provide them in a regular basis. And this should, in theory, is supposed to match what we were doing as of last August in 2019. And that's what the producers are responsible to take over. Now, in theory, the producers are supposed to get together and decide whether they want to take care of this new responsibility that they have individually, or get together with other people and have them service their interest. If they were to do it individually, we could literally be dealing with 3,000 different producers, and that's highly unlikely to happen. What's more likely to happen is that they will form groups, and maybe along the lines of the packaging that they have, like for example, the beverage industry, that all the soft drinks and stuff like that, they're likely to have their own group and service their own members and come to us for certain services. Others, maybe retailers that do it together, or maybe just a group of different producers. We expect that we have essentially one representative producer group, which is Stewardship Ontario. And so they kind of have a monopoly on it. And you only deal with one group, and that's sometimes difficult to get along because they can make demands and there's really no other option. That's it. The expectation is under this new regulation is that there will be more than one producer responsibility group, each vying to get and meet their requirements to recover their materials and be a bit more flexible in how we accomplish that. So they're supposed to tell the government by July 1st of 2021, which is just 2 or 3 months after we tell them what we service, who they're going to service and how and when. And I highlight out that that's going to happen, but that's the way it's written in the regulation right now. I think a better expectation is that they're going to present themselves as potential groups that can service certain areas, and that we'll be working towards some sort of terms to be able to provide service during that period of 21, 22 to solidify things so that we're ready by 2024, essentially. How those negotiations go will dictate whether the association plays a role in servicing you in the future, and where that goes. Beyond that, so after, assuming things go well, we expect at this point that we'll likely continue to do collection at least in 2024. In 2026, the producers have full authority at that point, and they can almost do what they want. There's certain things that they have to do. They have to come up with this standard list of materials that's acceptable. And again, right now, what I can tell you is that the government in this regulation has added materials that are designated, and those are things like single-use packaging, like foil wraps, trays, boxes and bags, and single-use food and beverage service items like straws, cutlery, plates, beverage cups, and stuff like that. Now, they're designated. It doesn't mean that they're going to be added to the blue box, but it just means that those who produce those containers or those items are going to be responsible to find a way to recover them and pay for that, the cost of recovering them. They can set up depots, they can set up a return to retailer, they can set up any service that they want there, or they can simply add them to the blue box if that's what they want. So again, time will tell what will happen there. And then the places that they have to service is really all the residences, so homeowners, including apartment buildings. We managed to get schools included in that, and long-term care facilities, as well as some public spaces. However, it does not include any what we would call ICI, which is all your businesses, any institutional facilities like hospitals, municipal office, works departments, police stations, and stuff like that, and industrial sites. They're excluded from this system. So the producers don't have to provide service to those particular areas. So that's one of the decisions that, as a municipality, you will have to decide in the future, and likely as early as 2024, is right now you are servicing a lot of those sites, not all of them, but a lot of those sites. And is that something that you want to continue to do as a municipality, or you believe no, they are independent, they can find their own service, and they can negotiate that themselves with the private sector. So it's something to think about for the future. They certainly will not be included in 2026 or beyond, but it's not to say that the producers will not cut a deal with you and say, well, okay, we'll collect them for you for a fee. Again, time will tell what will happen there. As of 2026, the producers are set to meet certain service requirements. In your case, you have curbside collection today. They can't take that away from you. They can't come back to you and say, you're kind of rural, you're far away, we don't really want to send a curbside truck, we're going to set up a depot in your community. They cannot do that. So your curbside collection service is safe. What they can do, though, is reduce the frequency to biweekly. They are required to continue curbside collection, but they're not required to collect more than every other week. So that's something that you could see in 2026 as a change if that's what they chose to do, if they felt that they were recovering enough materials. They are required to collect whatever they collect. They're required to collect it in a single day for whatever households they're collecting in the area. So meaning they can't say we're going to collect newspapers on Mondays and cans on Tuesdays and something else on Thursday or whatever. They got to do it all in one day, which is good, but they don't have to match your waste collection day though. So again, something to consider there. If things went sideways and you didn't have one service provider for both services. They are required to continue to provide a blue box receptacle. Right now, as of 2024, they'll have to continue to use the wheelie bin like you have now. But as of 2026, they could change their mind and say, you know what, we don't want to collect wheelie bins. We're going back to a blue box, and here's your first blue box. And if you need another one later, you call us and we'll get you a replacement. But we're not doing wheelie bins anymore. I'm not saying they will do that, but it's something that they can do if they choose to go that way. The way it's written right now, the province is really concerned about keeping services the same as much as possible. So they've set up this thing called a common collection system, which is essentially what's happening today with all the different programs we have, all the different blue boxes, all the different frequencies and stuff like that. They want to maintain that service, and then the producers are going to be allocated certain parts of that system. And right now, how that's going to be defined is not clear. And the way it's sort of written is really, it seems like they're trying to make it more difficult than it has to be. So we're a little concerned about that, about what's going to come out the other end, especially when the producers are the ones going to set up the rules about how they allocate different parts of the province. You're going to be guaranteed service because they have to provide service. But they could set it up as say, oh well, this rural area here, Loblaws could say pick the GTA, we want to collect all that area and leave all the rural areas to the smaller retailers or whatever, and it end up having higher cost to be able to service them and stuff like that. We don't think the government's going to allow that. They can intervene and prevent that from happening, but that is a possibility. And we don't want to be in a situation where, again, we're just, maybe there's 5 pros offering services across the province, but we only have access to one, and then they start making demands and we can't reach agreements and make it difficult for everybody. That's not good either. So that's something that we're watching. The other thing that is not in the, well, they sort of discussed it a little bit, is compostable materials. It is currently not a designated item in the Blue Box program, and they didn't make it a designated item. They have to report on what they produce and distribute in the province, but there's no requirement to recover any of those. And it's concerning for us because it gives producers an out. They could actually start changing their packaging to go to a compostable type of packaging and avoid paying fees and avoid being part of the Blue Box program. And the other, I mean, well, for example, even the newspaper industry right now could come out and say, well, our newspapers are compostable. That we deem them a compostable material. They should fall in the Blue Box, so we're not contributing anything. We don't have to recover any newspaper anymore in Ontario. So that's problematic, and we've pointed that out to the minister. I'm not sure if they're going to change anything at this point, but that's a potential loophole there that could create problems in the future. So, I mean, in a nutshell, essentially, that's what's going on. That's what's coming. The association wants to continue to serve its current members and the people of Luca-Badolf. We want to continue to provide the waste collection, the recycling collection. We wanted to continue to provide processing as well, and servicing all the businesses that we service today. Essentially, continue to provide the service you have today. Whenever you have any issues now, you call a local number. We know you, you know us, and we take care of things and continue. And that's what we want to do. From what we can tell at this point, I think it's very likely that we'll continue to provide collection services. I think the producers don't really want to go into that arena, and they know that we're best placed to provide that service. When it comes to processing, that's another story. We're in a good position industry-wide, but we're too small to really satisfy their needs. So we're more likely to act as a subcontractor to a larger service provider to continue that service. If that changed at all, what may happen is we may collect your material and bring it back to Urine Park, but instead of processing it there, it may be transferred to another site that would process it. There'd be no impact to your resident as far as the visibility of the program, but it would just affect the operation itself and the members of the association. So I'll leave it at that and maybe open it up to questions to really talk, because again, we could talk about this for a long time, and I'm sure you have a long night as it is.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that update, Francis. Any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
Hey, Francis, it's Dave. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good, good. No, thanks for that report. It's a little more thorough than mine. That's it. It's interesting. I'm sure you'll have some questions. It is hard given a report because there's so many could, maybe, should, and unknowns. And it is very hard for the board and yourself and for us to everyone to can continue to give the exact service and invest in the investments we're doing into robots and different technologies with all these unknowns. And I, like I say, I'm sure you've created some questions maybe next week by our staff and then by council, but thank you for that report.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dave. Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Mastarakis.
To you, Madam Mayor. Question, BC, have they been running a similar program, and how has that been working? And how might that look like Ontario?
Well, I can tell you that the producers would like it to look a lot like BC. And I can tell you that the municipalities of Ontario don't want it to look anything like BC. The program has been running there since 2014, if I remember right, May of 2014. The entire province was converted in one day, and where the producers took over. And this is an example where the producers took over the entire province as one unit and really drove the whole program. And so I think while some of the intents were well meant, the end results are a little different. So for example, in BC, they didn't really have a blue box funding program before. So for municipalities, anybody coming in with money to offer them to provide for funding for the blue box, it looked really good at first. Now that it's been going for a few years, it doesn't look so good after all. But again, the program was meant to cover 100% costs by producers. And the way the producers went about it is they said, okay, municipalities, we'd like you to do the collection for us because you're the best place to do that. And their answer to that was, well, we'll give you $30 a household to do the collection, but we'll take care of everything after that. And municipalities say, hey, we're getting nothing now, so $30 is a lot better than nothing. So most of them accepted. A few of them did not, but most of them did. And then they went out for a tender for processing across the province, and they got one company to process everything from the entire province, and which they received at their facilities. They set up a number of transfer stations and one processing facility for the entire province. That contract lasted 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, they changed contractor. They have a new contractor in there now doing the same kind of work. So what they found afterwards is that all the municipalities signed up for the program, and they signed up on a 5-year contract initially that renews automatically, and that $30 a household at no CPI clause, so they don't get an increase from year to year. They have to continue to provide the same cost, the same service for the $30 year after year. There's no fuel clause at all in there, so when fuel went up really high, it didn't get a dime more for that. And then they also found out that in their contract, they were supposed to collect the material and not have any more than 3% contamination, because that's what they were supposed to deliver to the processing facility, so that the producers could get the best deal for processing. Well, in reality, any blue box program you collect today, you're going to get a minimum of 10% contamination. In large urban areas in single stream with no monitoring, they'll hit as high as 30% contamination. So at first, the producers just came back and said, well, you're not meeting your 3% contamination, and we need you to come up with a plan. And then part of that plan required them to have extensive promotion and education programs where they would advertise to the residents to try to limit the contamination, putting it in there. And soon they found out that some municipalities, as part of their plan that the producers were making them do, were spending anywhere between $6 to $11 a household promoting the program, trying to reduce contamination. This is against the $30 they're getting to collect to try to improve the levels. And despite the best efforts, they're unable to meet the 3%. It's just not realistic. So the other pressure that they're now applying is the actual fiscal penalties. So for every load they deliver that's contaminated beyond 3%, they charge them a penalty, and the penalty is greater than the cost of the actual collection itself. So municipalities, and again, ended up doing the collection for free, and the producers don't pay for it. So pretty good deal for the producers, but it's not really 100% producer responsibility. So and then on the processor side, there was also other issues, because again, they weren't getting the material at 3%. And the way the system is laid out is, if a load is received that doesn't meet contamination requirements, they have to file a report to the producers, and the producers have 2 weeks to respond, which means sending somebody on site to physically look at that load that's been contaminated. So you have to quarantine it for 2 weeks essentially until they show up to determine whether it's really contaminated or not. And any producer today, especially if you only have one, you don't have the room to do that. So most of the time you just don't complain, or you put up with it. So they found themselves that they got squeezed by the producers. So they're definitely having issues over there.
Thank you, Francis. Some good learnings for us in Ontario, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mastarakis. Councillor Regan.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. That's an excellent report. Thank you very much, Francis. Definitely more detailed than the deputy mayor's. I was wondering about the new blue box system. And one of the things that, all kidding aside, when the deputy mayor talks about his report, there's a lot to do with education and making sure people are getting the right recycling the right materials. So with the new blue box system, is that going to make it easier for residents to recycle? They're going to know, is it going to be sort of like, is it some training, education, whatever it is we need to do to make sure that we're doing it right?
Well, it's going to be interesting because during the transition, the producers have to provide promotion education, but they're likely to do that more about what the acceptable materials are than anything else. Like, they're likely going to leave the municipalities to do about when your collection day is and where to get your container from, and all your local particulars and stuff like that. But after 2026, they have no longer any obligation to do any promotion education. So, and we know that if you go without, the program just gets contaminated more and more and more, and that's problematic. And right now, that's the way it's written, and that's the way it's laid out. So it's not going to look good. Now, one of the ways around it, which BC's also found out the same thing, is that if you designate every material in the sun, whether it's acceptable in the blue box or not, if they put it in, it's not deemed a contaminant because it's a designated item. So, like right now, we don't accept straws or coffee cups or whatever else, but because in the new system to be designated, even if they don't add them to the blue box, if people put them in, they will not be deemed contamination. But nevertheless, you get them and you go through the process, you got to pull them out somewhere and you got to deal with it. And it's kind of this hidden cost that nobody wants to deal with it.
Okay, thank you.
That's really interesting. Any other questions or comments from council? Just wondering, and I don't know whether or not you've got the answer to this or not, Francis, because to the point that right now there's a lot of would-haves, maybes, and I get a sense that there still can be a lot of changes before these dates are come to fruition. But just wonder what you would think would be the biggest risk potentially with these changes for municipalities.
Well, yes, a lot of things can change. I mean, and right now there's a lot of speculation, and it sounds like I'm dancing around some of the answers sometimes, but it is what it is at this point. I can tell you right now that for municipalities, the way this reg is written, it's actually pretty darn good. It's not perfect. There's some issues, but from the producer's perspective, there's a number of issues that they have that they're going to try to rectify. And we don't know which ones are going to get through and how that's going to affect the final regs. But we're certainly concerned about that, and we're going to be monitoring that closely. Assuming things don't change, right now, what is most concerning for us is that the time between now and the transition, so between 2020 and the end of 2022, is being really squeezed to try to accomplish certain things that, well, they want to accomplish a lot of things in 2021 that really should take 2 years to get done. And then if that gets rushed, they're going to miss the boat completely. And this is where you're going to get into agreements that don't work for anybody. And that's why we didn't want BC. I mean, again, the intent was fine, but the way it landed didn't land correctly. And so there's a risk for that to happen here in Ontario. Like, one of the things, for example, is right now the way the regulation is written is that in order to be a producer responsibility organization providing service for the producers, you have to have 10% of the market. What essentially means is that you have to be able to service an area that where you collect over 100,000 tons of material. I mean, the association does about 20,000. And we're a pretty big area, but we only do 20,000. So it's 5 times bigger than that. To be able to sit at the table and set the rules on how these contracts and the allocations and all those things are going to happen. So there's a very big likelihood that only 1 or 2 parties will sit down and set up all the rules for everybody in the province. And if those are not right, then we're all going to suffer for it. And so we hope that the minister will change that, or at least be very cognizant that that might happen. because we don't, like I said, we want to provide the service. We've been doing it for years. We want to continue to do it. But if we're presented with the contract that we know we can't live, like things like, for example, if you miss a blue box, if you miss a stop one day, they can penalize us $5,000. Well, providing collection for the entire day costs $1,000, but they charge you $5,000 for missing one household. And we all know that. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit we're not perfect. That does happen from time to time where you miss a household. But we get a call from the resident the next day. You missed me. Oh, sorry about that. We've got a truck in the air the very next day. We'll get you. I mean, they're collected within 48 or 24 hours or whatever. Everybody's happy. We move on. But when you have somebody that can just arbitrarily just say, no, you missed a day, or you missed a household, or you missed a street, there's a $5,000 fine. I mean, we are a nonprofit just like you. It's not like we have this big cushion that just, we can keep paying penalties at their whims and then and see what happens at the end of the day, right? So you have to be reasonable there. Things like contamination, things like, again, those penalties. If we can reach reasonable terms, everyone will benefit, and we'll have a better system for it. But if we can't, then we haven't progressed at all.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Francis. Any other questions or comments from council at this time? Deputy Mayor.
I'm sorry, Paul Smith. I got to apologize, Francis. If you could, Paul had asked me a question on a company, and it's in my day planner. I don't have it in front of me, that I was going to ask you at our next board meeting. And if you could, Paul, I'm going to put you on the spot. This was a question I wanted to ask, and if Paul could ask it, I would like Paul to ask it and have Francis comment on a company and I believe it might have been a resident's suggestion, and or again, just would like your comments on maybe on potential problems. But Paul, if you could, sorry about that, Paul.
No problem, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I was just looking back from the message from the resident. The company was TerraCycle, and what they specialize in is you can do municipal projects with them for recycling on specific items that people don't understand are recyclable, aerosol cans or spray bottle cans. And a lot of municipalities have done cigarette butts. And I believe there's an opportunity through that program to do some sort of fundraising as well. Like, say, for instance, if the Lions wanted to spearhead it or something, or the Optimists, there's opportunity there.
So yeah, Francis, if you could, I just wanted you to maybe comment on potential, sounds good, sometimes isn't good, sounds good, sometimes is risky, and problems. So could you comment on that?
TerraCycle is a company in the US that has seen an opportunity to provide services to companies that produce packaging that are not recyclable, but want to continue to provide that form of a packaging, I guess. And because that's it's beneficial for their operation for whatever reason, or refuse to change or whatever. And so they provide individualized services, and they've gained some popularity in recent years, and are proactive in promoting different solutions. Some a little wacky, some very interesting. It just varies quite a bit. And so, for example, I think one of the packaging that they had was drinking pouches, not a typical item that's recyclable, or even baby food comes in pouches and stuff like that. So it's not really acceptable in any recycling program that I know in North America, if not the world. And so they've offered those who produce the goods in those packaging to offer a system where the user, when they're done with their pouches, can mail them back to TerraCycle, and then TerraCycle gathers them and hires a nonprofit organization to weave them into making purses and baskets and other types of goods that they turn around and resell. And then that way the producer can show that they care about the environment, they care about their product, and that there's a way to recover it. Usually the recovery of those goods is like less than 1% overall, but it nevertheless shows an effort on behalf of the producer that they do that. One of their more recent project that they've worked on, they've signed up some of the biggest producers in the world, like Unilever and Procter and Gamble and Coca-Cola and stuff like that, where what they're working on essentially is really a reusable container. So when you order your deodorant or your shampoo or whatever else, you would actually order it by mail. They would, FedEx would deliver it to you in a special container, a special box with those variety of containers in there. And when you're done with them, you call them and they'll bring you a replacement and take away your old ones. And so they've launched in New York and Paris. This is under a pilot project right now. I don't have the result right now to see how that's working out. I imagine it's a very expensive program to do, but again, they're experimenting. So I mean, it's a very innovative company that's doing wacky things that has some potential for some products, I'm sure, but it's certainly not for the bulk of the packaging that we deal with on a regular day-to-day basis.
Okay, does that give you some information to go back to the resident with, Paul?
Yes.
Okay. All right, if there aren't any further questions, then I will say thanks, Francis, for joining us tonight. It was great for you to be with us, and we will certainly be anxious to hear further updates and as this rolls out over the next year and coming years from there.
Yes, no, for sure. It's my pleasure to come out tonight, and I'll gladly come back anytime you want to discuss this matter or any other matters you wish on the waste reduction front. Okay.
Great. Thanks very much, Francis.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Yep. Good night. Okay, now moving on in through the agenda. So we do actually have a planning matter in front of us. So we have to sit as the Committee of Adjustment. So I do need a motion for us to adjourn our regular meeting and to sit as a Committee of Adjustment under the Planning Act. So can I get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Ressman and Councillor Regan, all opposed, and that's carried. So we are, I will turn it over to Dan to speak to us about this consent application.
So through you, Madam Mayor, and to all the members of the committee. So there are two components to this particular application. One's dealt with by the committee and one will be dealt with by council. So the consent is by committee and the zoning bylaw amendment is by council. I just wanted to ask in advance of providing the presentation, is it okay or would it be okay to provide a presentation on both items while in committee, or would you prefer just to stick to consent and then present the zoning bylaw?
No, I think that you can do both of them as one. I don't see any issue with that.
They are submitted concurrently and they are intimately connected, so it makes sense to do it both as one. So with that said, I'm just going to share my screen so everyone has reference to the property here. So the purpose of tonight's application before committee and then subsequently before council is a recommendation for a proposed concurrent consent and zoning bylaw amendment application for a property that is municipally known as 315 Main Street. As committee may recall, planning did bring forward this application for information on October 20th. Discussion did occur at the meeting, which revolved around predominantly the proposed uses, the relaxations suggested with the zoning, as well as the servicing strategy for the property. The consent application would consider the severance of a portion of land, which is located within the Village of Lucan settlement area, from the larger portion of land that is currently located outside of the Village of Lucan settlement area. And this would accommodate the establishment of a commercial use. Additionally, the zoning bylaw amendment application would consider a change of the zoning of the lands proposed to be severed from the general agricultural A1 zone to a site-specific highway commercial exception, in this case C2-11 zone, which would consider a reduction to the front yard, the interior side yard, a rear yard setback requirement, And also add the following uses: clinic, convenience store, office, professional and general, personal care establishment, personal service establishment, and place of entertainment and amusement. The remnant farmlands would be rezoned to a site-specific general agricultural exception, A1-13 zone, which would recognize the undersized nature of the parcel. The subject property is a 21.8 hectare parcel, which is situated on the south side of Main Street, kind of bordering Main Street and Richmond, or Highway 4, on the northwest eastern edge of Lucan. The lands are also north of the Lucan Community Memorial Center and municipally known as 315 Main Street, as shown on the map here. The lands are currently surrounded by agricultural lands in crop production. A vacant parcel of land, vacant parcels of land generally. The northwest portion of the existing lot is within the urban settlement boundary as noted. This is the area, this area of land is designated highway commercial in the Lucan Biddulph official plan. The remainder of the land is outside of the urban settlement boundary of Lucan and is designated agricultural in the township official plan, as well as the county official plan. The property is currently zoned to general agricultural A1, and municipal services currently do not exist to the property, and access is maintained through Main Street. So as you can see here, the applicant has applied to sever a portion of the agricultural lands, as noted within the settlement boundary, from the larger portion that is outside of the settlement boundary. So the intent of the severance would be to accommodate a commercial development on the lands that are designated highway commercial in the official plan. The proposal would consider severing a portion of lands with a frontage of approximately 220 meters on Main Street, an area of approximately 3.76 hectares. The remnant parcel would have a frontage of approximately 251 meters on Richmond Street in an area of approximately 18.07 hectares. So as previously noted, a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application has also been submitted in order to establish a site-specific highway commercial exception zone, which would permit the items as previously noted. Planning staff have reviewed the proposal against the provincial policy statement 2020, the County of Middlesex official plan, as well as the Township of Lucan Biddulph official plan. Several policies have been identified in the planning report, which were utilized to prepare a recommendation for council. Generally, staff do note that the PPS, the county official plan, provide a high-level policy objective, which does promote development within existing settlement areas, where appropriate servicing hierarchy exists. Also, this ensures efficient and economical formats of development. Likewise, both policy frameworks encourage a mix of range of uses, while also promoting the economic development as well as employment opportunities for local municipalities. The township official plan in this case also provides a local level of policy direction which guides development of the lands. As previously noted, the lands are designated a highway commercial in the local official plan. Section 2.1.3.1 does state that lands designated a highway commercial shall be characterized by uses that cater to the needs of the automobile, the traveling public, and single-purpose shopping trips. They are encouraged to provide appropriate internal links to minimize vehicular entrances, and require to provide high standards of design, creativity, and amenities on site. In view of the proposed consent application, staff note that the proposal meets or represents good planning practice and also seeks to preserve existing farmland which is located currently outside of the settlement area. And further, in review of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, as outlined in the planning report, staff notes that the proposal reduction of the setback requirements by placing buildings along the street, in this case Main, is a preferred based on best practice planning principles. Additionally, the proposed uses serve to create an economically viable destination that is supported by minimum footprints proposed in the zoning bylaw amendment. So these minimums seek to ensure that businesses located within the development meet the intent of the auto-oriented single-purpose shopping trips, thereby reducing any potential impact to existing commercial stock located in Lucan. Staff have also recommended the inclusion of a holding provision, which would ensure the lands are serviced prior to development, and the developer also enter into a site plan agreement. In review of the proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment, staff have determined that the proposal meets the intent of the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and the local official plan. It is also capable of meeting the zoning bylaw by means of approval of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Given the above, staff are recommending that the committee approve consent application B13/2020, subject to the conditions that are outlined in the planning report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Dan. And what I might just let the committee know is that we do have Laverne Kirkness with us tonight. You'll recall that he presented at the last public meeting, and he's here just to answer any questions if the committee has any questions. But he understands that there's no need for him to present tonight. So if you've got any specific questions, he'll be happy to answer those. With that, I will open it up to the committee for questions and comment on the report that Dan has presented. So, any comment, questions from committee? Deputy Mayor.
I know there was a concern from one of our councillors on just the potential impact or how these bigger developments impact, small footprint downtowns. So I don't know if Dan can comment on that.
Through the mayor, yeah, that is something that was shared with us, and it was included in the report as well. So we went back and discussed with the developer what the concerns were from the perspective of planning. We want to ensure that the viability of the downtown remains available for the public, as well as the existing commercial businesses that are there. And through our review, we do note that traditional downtown businesses tend to take up smaller footprints, and they tend to be more boutique type shops and different services that are available. In this particular case, this is a highway commercial development, which is more tailored towards larger footprint developments, whether that be a large footprint retail development or something of like a movie theater or some type of entertainment, or even in the case of a clinic or a professional office. What we're requesting through the zoning, or what has been agreed upon with the developer, is to institute minimum footprints, which would be large enough to traditionally warrant them to be outside of the downtown area, located in a bigger location. So what I mean by that is we've included minimum footprints for things like the clinic, the professional office in general, as well as the personal service establishments. In those cases, 2,000 square feet per unit for the one, and then 1,500 square feet per unit for the other. And this just helps to ensure it's meeting more the intent of what that highway commercial zone is, which is larger format retail or commercial uses within that specific area.
Any other questions or comments from committee? MTO, they submitted a number of comments, and I believe in the conditions they'll be addressed. But I guess if there's to be any change in turning lanes or anything like that, who's responsible for paying for that?
Through the chair to the mayor. So through a more comprehensive review at the site plan stage, if there are identified needs through a traffic impact assessment to, create turning lanes, whether it be road widening requirements, whatever that might be, or whatever that might look like, that would be the sole responsibility of the developer.
And then
institute.
Okay, but then I guess the question of urbanization. So we don't have any sidewalks out to that piece of property. There's no street lighting. That would fall upon the municipality, I'm assuming.
Through the chair, so my understanding, maybe Jeff can provide a little bit of insight into that, would be that, so the larger servicing strategy, wherever that might be for, Main Street for the remainder of the municipality, would take that into account for future urbanization and development. In this case, typically what would happen is the developer would put forth a certain portion for their section, through whether that be a development agreement or a site plan agreement, whatever is identified as required through that more comprehensive review at the site plan stage. But I'll let Jeff comment further on the impact to the municipal infrastructure.
Yeah, and if I just, Madam Mayor, if I may just jump on and continue on with what Dan said, there's a number of properties between where our sidewalk stops and where it should continue, and I throw sidewalks out there, but it's also street lighting and curb. We have to make sure drainage is proper there. So I think it takes in a number of properties along there, and it is something that we need, just like Saintsbury with the residential development on that side of town. It would be something that we would have to look at. Unfortunately, at this point, we don't have development charges based on commercial. So I think that's something that as a municipality, we could look at, or that sort of thing. So, but I've already commented that's part of the whole growing system, is that we will have to look at servicing some of that, but it's not just this piece of property. It would service a number of area out there that is actually inside the official plan for Lukenwolf as it stands now. So I think it's something that's always been there, but it certainly should be something that should be looked at as we move forward with if this project moves forward. So it is something that has to be looked at.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments to be made right now? Okay, so seeing none, there is, I would ask for a motion. I have to get this straight. I've got all my notes here. So for this one, it would be essentially the consent recommendation. So on the first part of Jan's report, and you've got the recommendation in front of you, I would entertain a motion to accept or deny the recommendation at this point. Deputy Mayor?
I'll make a recommendation to accept.
Okay. And a seconder for that. Councillor Regan. Any further discussion? All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. The reminder, I don't have it with me, but reminder, because it is a consent application, you'll have to go in to the office just to sign that recommendation. So if you can put that in your travels in the next day, that would be great. So now I need a motion to adjourn our Committee of Adjustment and to convene a public meeting under the Planning Act. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. So now we're sitting as back as council, but this is to discuss the zoning bylaw, and I mean, Dan's presented that. I don't believe, I will ask if there's any questions or comments, but I'm assuming not. So with that, we can't make the motion in this public meeting session. So now I need a motion to reconvene our regular council meeting. So Councillor Regan and Councillor Masterakis, all opposed? Okay, so we're back in regular council. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to accept or deny the planner's recommendation. Deputy Mayor.
I'll make the motion to accept.
Okay, and a seconder. Councillor Regan. All opposed. And that's carried. Thank you very much. So I guess the next steps would just be that you will come in and sign the consent, and then is there an appeal period or anything, Dave or Dan? Sorry.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that's correct. So with the consent and the zoning bylaw amendment, a notice will be issued to the applicant and any interested stakeholder that has expressed interest, where a 20-day applicable appeal period is available to appeal the decision. Once that has passed, if we do not receive an appeal, then a final notice will be sent out.
Great. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for joining us, Laverne, and I believe there's a representative from Westell as well. Thanks for joining us, and we certainly look forward to your investment in our community. So, moving on to our minutes. You've got 2 sets of minutes in front of you for November 17th, and then our special meeting minutes of November the 4th. If there is nothing to amend or anything, if they're fine, then a motion to accept those as circulated, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All opposed? And those are carried. Thank you. To business arising, nothing has been added. I don't know if anything wanted to be pulled from the last set of minutes to be added. Okay. Then we will move on to our correspondence. So as always, there's a number of items of communication that we've received, and 2 have been pulled by staff, and they have to do with changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. Ron, I don't know whether you wanted to speak to it. I think it does, this kind of goes hand in hand with some of the resolutions that we've have received. If you go down through the balance, number 7 is there's a number of resolutions that have been passed by municipalities across the province with regards to the Conservation Act. So anyways, if you want to speak to this, Ron, and then we'll kind of go from there.
There we go. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to basically give an intro to this, and then I'll maybe pass it over to Mr. Fitzgerald, who's the planner. I think the concern out there and the concern expressed by the number of municipalities that have written letters to the province, I think there's quite a bit of concern about this change in direction, I guess you could say, or how things are going to be considered. So I know Dan can explain this a lot better than I can, so I'll maybe pass the baton over to him at this point.
Okay, thanks. Dan?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, to all members of council. So what you have here basically is as part of Budget Bill 229, the province is proposing amendments to the Conservation Authorities Act, as well as the Planning Act. So the changes build upon a 2019 bill, which was Bill 108, that defined core services or mandatory programs and services that the conservation authorities are authorized to provide using the taxation levy. And also further stated that non-core services or optional programs, are optional programs, which may be funded basically through an alternative manner. The ministry has stated that the proposed changes are basically intended to, one, improve governance, oversight, and accountability, giving the municipality more say, streamline the permitting and land use planning review process, altering the Conservation Authority's role in regulating development and planning reviews, permitting enforcement and the appeal processes. The minister would have a greater role in managing conservation authorities, as well as the ability to make decisions regarding permitting, appeals, and appointments, and also altering the composition of the boards and redirect the fiduciary roles of municipalities, municipally appointed members, to make decisions in the best interest both of their municipality and also appoint agricultural representatives to the boards. It's basically limiting boards to council members and one agricultural representative is what the proposal is. They also talk about recreational and educational programs such as camping and outdoor education can continue as long as they are funded through a self-generated revenue or have support from a local municipality which funds them through a memorandum of understanding. They also talk about the full impact of the changes will not be fully understood until the associated regulations are released by the province. So this is a big one for us. We don't at this point in time, we don't know what the regulations are going to be. We just know what they're intended to be. So we don't fully understand what that regulation is at the end of the day. We just have the idea of what the groundwork is or the framework. The proposed legislative changes are anticipated to have the most impact at the local municipal level. However, the county has noted that there can be impacts based on our clean water projects, as well as our natural heritage planning and national hazard planning, as well as to some extent a bit into our forestry industry. From the perspective of land use planning, we would hope that many of the programs would continue across the county, such as the Natural Heritage Review. Also, there are many landowner-related programs that benefit currently from agricultural areas and would hope that those programs are able to continue in some sort of manner. But a lot of the details currently right now are left unclear and to future regulations that will come as well. Just to note, the County Council has discussed this issue at their last meeting. A motion was not made, as it is safe to say that typically conservation authorities are primarily within the local municipal level, which is probably why you're discussing it here tonight, right? So the other thing I would note is that several other municipalities within the county have passed resolutions in support of postponing or further considering the proposed changes. So one of the main concerns that they have here is not necessarily whatever the regulation is that's going to be at the end of the day. It's that the process that they're undertaking is perceived to be a bit underhanded from the conservation authority's perspective. So again, high level, but I'll try to do my best to answer any questions, or maybe some of the councillors that sit on boards can also provide a bit of information as well.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Dan. Are there any questions or comments regarding this? Well, I guess we've got some, you did say that some municipalities have already passed resolutions against in the county, right? So, I mean, that's an option to us. We can ask for a more fulsome report if we feel we don't have enough information. I think certainly there's a lot of concern, and a lot of unknowns at the moment as to what all these changes will mean for our municipality and for planning. And I think there's a lot of consequences too for that, because my understanding, how I'm kind of reading and how I'm looking to see what might happen is that a lot of this will fall into planning, and what does that mean for our municipality, and the costs that will be associated with that. So, Councillor Regan, you had your hand up.
I did. I'm just wondering. I wrote to council about this. I'm just wondering why the change. It seems rather sweeping. As I'm going through this, it just looks like there's more concern, and it doesn't. I'm not sure what it's solving. So I don't know if Dan can help me with that, or if Ron knows through you. But why the change? I'm not sure.
If I may, I think, Madam Mayor, there's been comments throughout a number of years from some municipalities that have felt that there's been too much power, I guess you could say, wielded by the conservation authorities I don't think that's really been the case in our situation, but I do, I think over the years there have been a few municipalities that have taken exception to some of the authority that the Conservation Authority does wield, and I think, I guess we're surmising maybe or supposing that the province has listened to some of them complaints and this is how they're dealing with it. But to Mr. Fitzgerald's point, it seems like it's killing a fly with a sledgehammer as opposed to a fly swatter. But that's about all I can say at this point.
Did you have any thought on that, Dan?
Yeah, through the chair to the mayor to Councilor Reagan. So I think the intention, which was, I would say, clear when this particular government was elected, was that they were trying to refocus the authority or the core service and mandates of the conservation authorities. So I think from the higher level perspective, there was a thought and discussion that they may be wandering into areas that maybe not necessarily was falling within their general purview of where they should be focused, based on their conception of what they should be doing. So the intent is to take that back from the provincial perspective and refocus them on those 4 core mandate services. And then if you want to, from a local perspective, enter into those memorandums of understanding for those other service, like non-core related services, then that's possible as well. So there's a concern, certainly from the county's perspective, that there's a lot that our conservation authorities do that are outside of that core mandate. So that is a potential concern for us, because we don't, at the end of the day, like we said, we don't understand what those regulations are going to look like. We just know that through Bill 229, it's basically cementing what those 4 core services are. And then there's another of other changes that they're proposing as well.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Dan.
So I don't know how council wants to proceed. I mean, we can do nothing. We can sit on it. We can put it on business arising for to watch it, or we could ask for a resolution like some of the other municipalities have put forth. So I don't know what your thoughts are for moving forward on this. Councilor Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could we look at doing a resolution with respect to this? I just was wondering if we need to get more information before we do that.
I guess you're saying one of a resolution have been presented in communications against what the province is recommending?
Yes, sorry. Yes, I am.
We could certainly ask staff to prepare one. I would probably say to go in tandem with what our neighboring municipalities have written.
Okay.
The rest of council is in agreement to that. Okay. So for next meeting, Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, Alex had his hand up.
Oh, did he? Oh, I can't
Sorry.
see it.
But just, he was nodding his head in agreement, but I just thought I'd acknowledge that through you.
Thanks. Thank you. I couldn't see his hand. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, can we ask Alex for his thoughts from his experience? Not to put him on the spot, but if he wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, so yeah, I can speak a little bit. I mean, I think the struggle for both of our conservation authorities is that the clarification is not there from the province on what exactly their intent is here, and it does seem to be a little bit sketchy, for lack of a better word. the conservation authorities do a lot of work, and they, I suppose it could be said that will be throughout the process, maybe a little heavier hand in what they do with municipalities and larger cities, but at the end of the day, authority to maintain water quality, maintain protection of species risks and things like that, and we can't be in a position where we're loosening up on our ability to safeguard those hazard areas and those environmental weak areas in our communities in favor of letting developers just do what they want, or even letting municipalities kind of do what they want. I mean, they're the experts; they really are. And I mean, as a board member, I'm still learning. I can't profess for a moment to think that I understand how this. Like, I've read through it, and it's I'm trying to wrap my head around the various components of it. But I think as a municipality, we do benefit a great deal from the two conservation authorities that we work with and are members of, and I'd like to see us support them openly, and also send a message to the province to say, hey, you need to go back and rework this, because it's not. It doesn't seem to work for all municipalities and all cities. I think that the province is acting kind of taking advantage of an opportunity to get some of their politics involved in this, and I don't want to see that, certainly. But I don't know. It's there's a lot to this. There's a lot to unpack here, and my gut tells me that there's something fishy here, and I want to be sure that we're not letting something roll over us. So I would like to see a resolution to support the conservation authorities and push back to the province and say, this isn't what we want. So that's
Okay. Thanks for that, Councillor Westman. All right, so I guess maybe if staff can come back for December 15th with a resolution, and as I say, I'm sure between Ron and Dan and our contacts, your contacts with our neighboring municipalities, we can draft a similar one to what they passed. Okay. Were there any other items in communications that council wanted to speak to? Okay, I would ask for a motion to accept the list of correspondence for information, please. Councillor Mastarakis and Councillor Westman. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Committee reports, CEDC.
No update from the last time. Thank you.
Blue Water.
Nope, nothing new.
Since the last report an hour ago. Lake Huron, we have a meeting later this week. Fire boards, they did have meetings in the last 10 days, and minutes will be provided, hopefully for the next meeting. ABC and Upper Thames. Not.
Well, pretty much what we've been talking about. We have distributed the draft budgets for 2021 for councils to have a look at. As you can well imagine, there's going to be some impact on Luke and Badolf based on our assessment. Like I said before, we are one of the, if not the fastest growing community in the county. So that's going to have a little impact on our assessment and levy. So, but you can see that in the budget documents. I think you'll notice that some of our budget projects at both authorities had been delayed because of COVID. That money's still within the budget to be able to go ahead with those projects. Our labor costs are here and there. There's gain in some areas, and increases in expenses in other areas due to COVID. We are looking to get some of that money back through the province through the COVID relief programs. So that's going to help an awful lot. And simple things like seedling costs have gone up because of the supply and demand issues with our growers. So, I mean, our idea of going forward with our own little plantation is going to certainly help us. That's in the long term. So, as I kind of look through my notes here, I see that that's pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about. Is just, everybody have a good look at the budget, see what if there's anything in there that makes you have any questions or whatever, and then we can certainly get those questions off to the authorities and get some answers back. If we do have an appetite for a visit from the representatives from the authorities, they're willing to come and speak to council and answer any questions about the budget or about any of the programs. This is an opportunity for us also to ask some of those hard questions to the authorities about the changes to the Conservation Act as well. So I would encourage that.
Okay. Thanks for that, Councillor Westman. That might be one thing that we might want to explore is having them come and present. I think it has been a while since they have visited us. They used to do it on an annual basis, and I don't believe they visited us last year. So maybe that is something that would be a good opportunity to have them come and speak to us in the new year. That would, I think, would be a great benefit. I think it's important to remember when you're reviewing the budget document and that we are assessed because we have two conservation authorities that service us, but we're assessed for the whole municipality on both of them. So even though Upper Thames does the eastern part of the municipality, the assessments for the whole of Lucan Biddulph, and then, well, you saw the map with ABCA, and it's the same thing. So that's why our increases seem to look a little out of whack, but that's how that works. So maybe staff can maybe get in touch with the two conservation authorities and try to set something up in the new year on that. Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We will be meeting next Wednesday on Zoom, and it will be on YouTube for the public to watch should they want to view the meeting.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. Staff reports. Ron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll be very quick tonight. No formal reports. Just one thing, just so council knows, Cindy McNair is scheduled for training tomorrow on the code of conduct for all employees and the workplace harassment and violence in the workplace policies. So that's the annual training that's happening tomorrow. And one more little tidbit, and it's good news. Julie, I believe in our office, has ordered 2 more AED units. One for in the municipal office and one for in the library. We made our librarian very happy, and that funding can come out of our health and safety line item for this year's budget. So that is good news, and we made some people very happy today. So
good.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ron? Just wondering, I know that have we scheduled the session for council for our code of conduct and harassment training?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have for January 5th.
Okay,
so
that's right. I knew it had been
take place.
changed. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Tina, did you have anything from your end?
I do not. Thanks.
Finance, Catherine.
Thank you. Just have the one report in front of you tonight regarding the 2021 remuneration. Each year, the salary grid gets adjusted for inflation increases, and we do this in December because it aligns nicely with getting ready for the first payroll in January, as well as we're currently working on the operating budget. So to have this established now is good timing. So whatever the salary grid gets adjusted for, if it in other policies, the same inflation increase is applied to other types of pay, such as council and crossing guards and other ones listed there, as well as other rates within other policies that we have. So for 2021, staff is recommending that the salary grid be adjusted by 1% over 2020 and be effective for January 1st. This rate is comparable to what others in the municipality are looking at, or have already moved, or are working into their budgets currently, unless they had other rates already passed in through their unionized contracts or things like this. And then sometimes we usually take the confidential employee grid at the same time, but we'll do that in a later date as performance reviews are getting adjusted. We just wanted to get the inflation rate on that. And that's about it. So I have the attachment is a policy with the grid that incorporates this 1% increase. So my recommendation is that council adopt that policy.
Okay, thanks for that,
That's
Catherine. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yep. Any questions for Catherine on this report and recommendation? Okay, I believe there is a motion later on in the package. Anything else, Catherine? Does anybody have any questions besides this for Catherine at this time? Okay, thank you very much. Did you have anything else, Catherine?
Nope, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Planning, I think we've got everything that we had on our schedule. Public Works, Jeff.
And through Madam Mayor, I just have a couple things. I'll be real quick again tonight. I just wanted to, the green bin program has finished up for the season. I just wanted to touch on a couple things with it. In 2018 to 2019, we increased 35% of our intake. From 2019 to 2020, we've increased again 35%, which when you consider that we've already gone up 35%, another 35% means that from 2018 to 2020, we've doubled the amount of material coming into our green bin program. So I think it's a sign, and I must admit I've seen this before. Once people start realizing that program is there, they start using it, and it becomes a real level of or a real service that people appreciate, and so it was well used this year, and we had a lot of inquiries about times and that sort of thing. So the costs for this year, it comes out to be about $13,246, and we took in 286 tons of material for 2020. So it's a good program. People were using it, and it's nice to see. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that before I go to my next item. Yep.
Okay, Councillor Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jeff, I'm just wondering, that's a really huge increase, and I know people really do appreciate it. I'm just wondering, and I have to ask, do we know if people outside the municipality are using it?
Well, it's one of those things. It's a good question because we do not man it. There could be, and I'm not so much worried about the odd person showing up outside the municipality, but it could be used by commercial landscapers and that sort of thing. Could be dropping off, grass clippings and stuff to it. But I think at this point, if we had to hire someone to do it, it would offset the savings. Would probably not be there. I don't believe we're getting enough material coming in through commercial or through off residence to warrant trying to pay someone to be there and monitor the system as it stands now. But it'll be something to keep an eye on. I don't think as the staff out there saw that there was a lot of so-called commercial trucks backing in and dumping. So But it is something to keep an eye on as this program goes forward.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. Jeff, I just had a question, and this might be more of a budget discussion as the years go on, but like I think probably a lot of the increase had to do with the fact that everybody was home. I think a lot of people, you could see projects being done, but do you know of any municipalities that run a similar program that keep it going for the whole year?
I know, Madam Mayor, the Middlesex Center, again, started very similar to this. And as the program expanded, they now run, they close it for the winter, obviously, but they open it up in the early spring, and they run it basically right into late fall, but they have it throughout the summer. And they also incorporate, their cleanup items. They'll supply a garbage bin so people can pay to get rid of large items like mattresses and that sort of thing. And then they also include recycling. So if you want to bring in recycling items, they provide other bins such as electronics, tires,
right,
that sort of thing that don't cost the municipality a lot, but it's a spot that residents can get rid of. So it's a whole program, but it all started out with the yard waste and expanded. And once we realized that the program got big enough that we needed to man it, it became, let's look at what other services we could throw in there. So yes, it is out there. It's most municipalities. Strathroy, Caradoc have a huge program. Same thing. They have a huge spot, and it's used. It's actually open most of the week also, and manned. And they take in a lot. Of course, Strathroy's a big place. So
yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Okay.
Second item, I just want to give it a little bit of an update. I think everybody knows. I know Dave probably will know, or Deputy Mayor Manders will know. Saintsbury is getting ready for pavement. If it wasn't for the snow, we'd probably see some black stuff on it now. So great news. Technically, I don't think there was very few issues arose. There was a couple of small items. I think the biggest thing was communication. As the project wore on in the last week or so, the communication has been a little could be desired to be improved upon. And I think I'd like to give a credit to the people that are on Saintsbury. I think they've done an excellent job at working around the construction guys and that sort of thing. So the good news is it's coming to an end, and it's been a tough go when snow starts flying. So
hey, Jeff, yep. So just a comment that the construction workers have been very good. They are right at the edge of our property. Actually, we have enjoyed the quietness of Saintsbury, to be honest. And if you would have said it was a 2-month delay, you wouldn't have much pushback. So, but anyways, they appear to be very respectful and helping people out with their blue bins and garbages when needed. And I do want to comment on that. Feel free to comment back to them that I feel they've, again, I haven't heard of really many. I think people would have complained to me, to be honest. And I see them with their backhoes actually moving the blue boxes and garbage cans the days that they needed to, and it's been not very impactful, really. So
that's good. And then my final item, I just wanted to update. We had a meeting with BM Ross on the master servicing study that's going on. A quick update. It looks like that we were shooting for January for it to be back. They are back delayed a little bit. It looks like it's going to be more along February before it's presented as a report to the public. As part of the update, stormwater, just to give a quick update, it looks like we're lacking a bit of information there. It looks like there might be some follow-up, with some infield materials that may have to be collected, but that there'll be more along that lines. The water side of things, they've got some infrastructure that they're working on for planning for the future, which is what the study was meant to point out. So that's really good news. And then sanitary, I think one of the items that came up quite quickly was that they've realized that the plant is basically reaching capacity, and that BM Ross is recommending moving forward with either decision for expansion quicker than normal. They've always been like, it's moving along, but now they've actually said it's time to move. So I think I mentioned that before, that in budget discussions, we'll get into how we want to move forward with this. But one of the things that has come through with their data is that the capacity basically at the plant is now, with what's coming through on Dan's side of things, we will run out of capacity in the next short term for planning. Doesn't mean that we're not going to stop building. We still got years. It'll take years for the builders to build out, but for the planning side of things, we basically will be coming short here shortly. So that's going to be one of the things in the next short term month or so. We're going to have to make a decision on how we want to move forward. So just an update on council. I think we touched a little bit on that on the capital side of the budget, but just to let you know that in the next few weeks there's going to be a discussion around that. So and that's all I've got for now.
Okay, thanks for that, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff at this time? Okay, thanks very much. Paul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Just quick update, verbal update, just on how the parents and tots and senior skating have been going. They've been quite well subscribed to. We started out with just 2 separate time slots on a Wednesday and a Thursday, as were the previous times. We've split apart the seniors and the parents and tots, which the seniors were quite happy about having that option. We've since added a 9 o'clock shift for overflow that we didn't previously advertise because we didn't want to be bringing so many people away, because we have that the cap for fitness classes. And then we've also added now Tuesday 2 time slots as between 9 and 10, 10:30 and 11:30 were very desirable for those with young children and wanting to work around nap time and lunches. In terms of staff time, there's been some staff time dedicated to it. A majority of our phone calls right now are people trying to book themselves and their families in for these. But it's not a taxing amount of time dedicated to solely that. As for cleaning, it's no different than the nighttime between hockey and each shift for the hour. So that's not too much dedication for the staff, as well as flooding's not really required, as the ice isn't getting any heavy skates. So it's not a huge amount of staff time. Just it's mainly the phone calls for registration is the main occupier of our time right now for that. But I think it's also people are just learning about it, and we've tried and developed a system, Abby and myself, to make sure that we're not allowing too many people to book ahead of time, so we're not only having the same people and other people are not getting a chance.
Okay, I actually ran into a friend of mine in the Foodland parking lot that is taking advantage of the senior skate, and she said it's great, and that group has really enjoyed it. So glad that it's out there.
Yeah, I'm quite glad to. We are also encouraging participants. While it's not required that they wear a mask while they're skating, we're encouraging them to do so if they feel comfortable enough that it's not going to tax their breathing. So a lot of the seniors have been quite thankful of that as well.
Yeah, no, thanks. Is that it?
That is it for this evening. There's a lot going on.
Any questions for Paul this time? Okay, Lisa.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple updates. I'm not sure if everyone's noticed, it was on the web on our last newsletter, but the Mayor's Honor Roll nominations are now open, and there's a number of categories. So if you haven't seen that, it's on our website, description of the categories. And we are open to nominations now. So that the mayor awards that in the new year. And that was our first one last year, and it went very well. So I just want to remind everyone about that. And again, like I said, this weekend's a busy weekend in Lucan Biddulph. We have a special event planned for Friday evening at 5:30 p.m. if people would like to watch on Facebook Live. And then, of course, Saturday's the Santa Claus food drive starting at 2 p.m. in Lucan, and then moving forward to Granton at 5 p.m. We've had some questions about people who are not on the route, so we've just encouraged them to come to the Lion Shed before Santa takes off on his journey at 2 p.m. So if they want to come between 1 and 2, want to drop off a food item, they're welcome to do that. If they want to see Santa off, to stay in their cars and watch as Santa kind of takes off in the fire trucks. And again, as Kathy mentioned earlier, was our festive Saturday shopping specials. And that's being updated on the website, on Discover website, about who's participating. And we will have a post on Facebook as well as the date gets closer. So that's everything. Thank you.
Great. Any questions for Lisa? Deputy Mayor.
Lisa, have you got the communication up from Blue Water on the, or have you decided to post on the Christmas and New Year's pickup?
Yeah, we already did a Facebook post on that, and I believe it was on one of the previous newsletters. But again, as we get closer, I'll just kind of remind people as well. And that'll be on the
one thing, I'm not sure if it was on it or not. I'm not on Facebook, that's my wife. But the I believe my concern is obviously with that being a holiday, the Friday, and then Saturday morning, people waking up, it has to be out at the curb by 7 a.m. Is that on the communication?
Yes,
I
believe it was, but if it's not, I'll make sure.
Yeah, that's real important, especially with everybody. Obviously, most people will be off that day, and if they bring it out at 10 or 11, it's got to be out by 7 a.m. because they'll probably have their drivers out early to get home themselves. So,
and yes, I do find on those days the drivers are quite prompt in their tour, in their pickups. So yes.
But yeah, if you could add
I will
that.
make sure that that's communicated out. Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa.
Councillor Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lisa, I was just wondering, there was a couple of concerns, same concern from residents, just about the map. I guess that with the route map, is that may have already been fixed, but that was posted on the on the website?
Yeah, on a previous post, we had put that out as kind of a draft, but then we've basically said since then, really the reality is you don't need a route map because Santa's going to be through every street in town. So really it's kind of a not needed map at this point, but yeah, I know I'd received some comments online as well.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thanks very much, Lisa. Councillor comments. Councillor Mastarakis.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I received an email from a resident, so I thought I'd just share the comments. The resident said it was noted in council meetings that Lucan is one of the least treed towns in Middlesex County. However, we are not insisting on developers planting trees in new developments. The strategy is to replace trees that have been removed with another tree. This would seem to maintain status quo and not improve the landscape. Our development and those in our ward, which is Ward 2, have no trees on the boulevards. I see this as a great opportunity for the town to become better treed at the expense of the developers. Having trees would also increase property values and improve curb appeal of the homes involved. The impression you get driving around these areas today is one of a parking lot since few people park in their garage anymore. If you do take the example from London to Forest City, you will see that all developments through the 60s and onward were required to have trees as part of the development plan. So I thought I'd share that as we're talking about a great deal of development and as we are very low on the tree side. So thank you to the resident for providing those comments.
Those are quite timely, considering that we will be considering a major development in the next while. So those comments are quite timely. I might just say that if a tree is removed, then they're replaced with 2 trees. So it's not 1 for 1, it is 1 for 2. So it's not great, but it's something. So, but I think I think that came up in our discussions, official plan and all of that, and over the last few months, that there is a concern on all of us that how do we get more trees in our community? So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Any other councillor comments? Okay, no changes to budget. Any notices of motion? Okay, then I will move on to our motions in front of us.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Oh, yes, yep.
I wanted to declare a pecuniary interest. I should have done that at the start of the meeting.
Okay.
I drawn a blank now on the exact, so I might as well just say everything because I just forget what I need to say. So my son, Jesse Manders, works for the township in the Parks and Rec, and with that increase, if it is passed, would benefit him from that expense paid for by the taxpayer. So I want to declare pecuniary interest. Thank you.
Okay, and
On
just
that, Catherine's, and I'll have to come in to sign.
that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Okay, so we did the minutes. So the next one is resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan-Biddulph authorize and direct the clerk to purchase $75 gift certificates from local businesses to give to the township employees for Christmas. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Westman and Councillor Reagan. No. Let's write this down. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that the Council of Township of Lucan-Biddulph adopt the following human resources policy. Policy number 101-19-2021. It's the salary grid policy. Can I get a mover and seconder for this one, please? Councillor Westman, seconder, Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that if no one cares to speak to these bylaws on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed. I just lost this on my iPad, sorry. And read a third time and passed. Before I finish this, Tina, should the zoning bylaw that we passed earlier be on that list?
It should, yes. Thank you for catching that.
Okay, so what number is that one?
209-2020.
Okay. All right, so the 209-2020, though, the whatever the name of that one is, for the Manders and the engineering or the agent that presented it. So it's that zoning bylaw, and then 57-2020, the confirming bylaw. And if I can get a mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Masterakis, and all opposed. And those are carried. And resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 8:47 p.m. A mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed?